You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, the host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He's Daylan Flowers, host of the Daylan Show. He comes on most Mondays. He's on the show, and we talk a little bit of Ole Miss sports. He's a student at Ole Miss at the moment. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, man. Just went back to Arkansas a couple of days ago. Spent the weekend with some family and friends. It was much needed, but I'm doing pretty good, man.
Awesome. That is good to hear. And everybody that sees our list, we woke up and chose violence today. So everybody needs to be aware of that. And the reason we have that bullet point, and that the whole question is, should the SEC replace Texas A&M with Texas Tech? That is the conversation point. And the reason we do that is ever since Texas got admitted to the league, they've saber rattled about going to the Big Ten and conversations and how they don't want to be in the same conference with Texas. And honestly, if we're going to be real, Daylan, the only people that are talking about Texas making everything about them are Texas A&M people at the moment.
Yeah, it's been a rough month for Aggies fans. If you're not aware of college baseball, they recently lost the College World Series to Tennessee, and then their head coach, who I shall not name, but he went on a little bit of a run and just kind of said that I chose to be at A&M for a reason I won't be leaving. Well, the next day he decided to take his talents down to Austin, Texas, and now he's the head ball coach at Austin. So I don't blame A&M fans, honestly, man. Like I feel where they're coming from. Look, I hope to never be in their position. But they're kind of the little brother of the conference, and kind of have been for a while. I think they kind of got real confident when they were first introduced into the conference a little over 10 years ago, and since then it hasn't been a fun ride for Aggies fans. So I'm down for it, man. I there's none like a little SEC love and hatred. And I'll say this as well. I think Texas and OU to the conference is great. I think it brings back rivalries like, the Lone Star Showdown, the Southwest Classic games for Arkansas and Texas. OU has always had a good little rivalry with LSU over the years as well, and Bama. And so I think it's fun. I think it's a lot of old rivalries that will be renewed. But, there's that one thing that A&M's always had over Texas over the years, and that's, we can recruit because we play in the SEC. They don't have that anymore, So now, the Longhorns have that same level playing field, and, recruits are looking, and, things are more appealing to other. And if I'm a talent, I'm probably going to pick Steve Sarkisian football over, Elko football, but that's just my opinion. So I feel where they're coming, but it's definitely a rough time for Aggies fans.
Yeah, and they're doing it in such a, for lack of a better word, coward way. Because if you were a little older, Daylan, you would understand the Ole Miss Mississippi State rivalry in the mid-2010s was unlike anything else in the country. But even Ole Miss people would fight you if somebody tried to take that game away. State people would fight you if they tried to take that game away. Texas A&M's just straight running. It is sad.
Yeah, that reminds me. For I don't know if you kind of are aware of this, but and fans are. We are no longer playing USC in the near future, which I'm not very happy about. And don't get me wrong, I love Lincoln Riley. I think he's one of the greatest minds in football. But you can kind of test that's maybe why he left OU. He didn't want to face SEC waters. And so I think A&M's kind of in that same realm of football right now. They are. Look, and this is me in a media standpoint. A&M should, the finances, the atmosphere, the facilities, they should be consistently one of the best programs in the country, football-wise at least.
Instead of Texas 8-4, which is what they're known as.
Yeah, and so they've and like I said, they've truly become a little brother, especially the division over the last few years. And that's just of not meeting expectations. And now you kind of come in with Texas, who obviously runs that state. But now, and I said just a few minutes ago, man, when you talk to people that are not a part of the SEC but have familiar waters within it, we we hold realm in the sports world of college sports. Not just football. That's everything. When people talk about the ACC, it's a different aura. It's a different feel. It's a different schematic. And so when you bring Texas into that, you kind of lose any feel that you have as an A&M fan, because that rivalry is so deep. And you kind of thought you got away from that 12 years ago, and now they're back into it with you guys. It's going to be weird for me. But I think it's going to be fun as well to see that game and just kind of see the hostile environment, and just kind of see the waters of where everything goes with the two teams in the conference now.
Yeah, November 30th, Texas and Texas A&M is must-see television. Nobody is going to miss that.
And as much as I kind of am up in the air with no more divisions in the conference, I still think we're going to have some exciting games. I know Georgia and Texas play this year. We still have a lot of good other rivalry games on the schedule that I think are just going to be exciting. I'm really excited about our game against OU. I'm not excited about the time of it, but I'm just excited to see this. Of course, the history OU has. I'm a huge Brent Venables fan, to see what he'll be able to do this year. So the two teams are obviously historic programs, and it's going to be a fun time welcoming them into the conference.
Yeah, it should be a whole lot of fun. Georgia is basically on 1990 Michigan watch. They could have the best roster in the entire country and go 9-3.
Yeah, and then that's a point of kind of losing the divisions, and so much of this college football change. They have, and there's been years in past years that we've kind of questioned Georgia. They have so much talent. Why do they have this easy schedule? And I remember some of the Bama teams back in the day, people just kind of questioned their early easy schedule. They have a very difficult schedule. I think they have one of the 10 toughest schedules in the country this year. And that excites me. I think that's kind of, through all the misnomers going on in college football right now, I think that's a kind of emphasis that I love, that now that we're kind of seeing the top teams play before, early, especially in the start of the season, before we get to that postseason, so we can kind of get a feel of how they match up and things of that nature. But it's definitely going to be fun. I think Georgia obviously is going to be one of the top teams in the country, and they're looking a little redemption after not making the playoffs last year.
So Ole Miss went on a little bit of a heater this weekend in recruiting. They got 3 commitments. One of them, Cortez Thomas, defensive backs out of Holmes County in Mississippi. Everybody thought he was going to Mississippi State. He surprised committed to Ole Miss. Ole Miss got a commitment from Samari Reed, a wide receiver from Coconut Creek, Florida, which that's awesome. And also got a commitment from Major Preston from IMG. And anybody that starts at IMG can play football. And if you look at his film, he has a little bit of Mike Hilton in him. So what do you think?
I'm excited because let me tell you what, there was maybe 2-3 weeks ago, we were in the midst of a lot of our top recruits decommitting. And I just acknowledged our fan base kind of losing their minds about it, which is understandable. But it brought me to the point of kind of reminding people what I said when Quinshon Junkins announced he was transferring. And you can find my tweet. I don't tweet that much, so it shouldn't be hard to find. But I just said kind of keep calm and have faith in this coaching staff. That was one of my big things going into this upcoming season when we hired Pete Golding, was just to trust the coaching staff. Things may not always go our way, and a lot of times they don't for a lot of things. With this era of recruitment in high school and transfer portal, you really don't know how long you have a kid until they actually sign their letter of intent, and you still really don't have the kid. They could be here for a year and then leave. But have faith in this coaching staff. We've talked about it. You've talked about it a lot. I truly believe this is one of the best coaching staffs in the country. And we have a lot of guys like Joe Judge and Zach Arnett, who now with a little bit of changes in the NCAA council may have more of a bigger role in terms of coaching wise. And so I'm excited to see that, and just the notoriety, the minds that we have on both sides of the ball. But I especially just kind of want to focus on that defense. Man, we just have so much talent. We have so much experience and elite experience at that. Like a lot of these guys, they just haven't been around the block. They've been in areas where they've succeeded at a high level. And so I'm excited. I am very high on Major Preston. Like you just said, if you play and you start at IMG, you have a lot of potential to really grow. I think the kid can put on a little size, but I think he's very quick for where he plays on the field. I think we have continued to develop recruiting well in that safety area. And he's a ball hawk guy, man. He continues just to I kind of say this in terms of not comparing guys, but he kind of just plays the ball in the air like Ed Reed. Ed Reed used to just play everywhere, man. I promise you, when I used to watch Ed Reed could be over here, the ball is released from the quarterback, and he's on the other side of the field just like this. And I see that a lot of major pressing, just plays the ball really well. And so have faith in our coaching staff. They know exactly what they're doing. They understand what it takes to recruit at a high level. And what it takes to continue to get guys here and play the football we want to play. And I think a big key to that is after that Georgia game last year, and I think I've said this before, I saw Lane and some of the things he said just kind of spark what we needed to do in terms of trying to compete with Georgia and Bama and the top teams in the country. And since that moment, I've seen a lot change, and I'm going to continue to have belief in what Lane and the coaching staff does in terms of recruiting.
Thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. Media days are less than a week away. This time next week, Lane Kiffin will have gone. That's amazing. We are pumped. Gametime is the place to get your MLB tickets, and with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Views from all the seats, even if it's Vaught Hemingway Stadium, you can check it out. Lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. Basically, all of the customer service suite is for you and can help you out a lot. Take the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets with Gametime. And with this being the most anticipated season in Ole Miss history, I may be able to help you out also with some tickets. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, all one word, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Daylan, we talked about Texas Tech, Texas A&M, OU and Texas in the first part of the show. Tomorrow in the third segment, I talk about Texas Tech and Texas A&M really specifically is just my opinion on that. And we talked a little bit about the recruiting heater that Ole Miss went on, but Media Days is about a week away. This time next week, Lane Kiffin will have already gone. What do you think the main stories of Media Days will be?
Well, I'll definitely be waiting on someone to ask him a Nick Saban question. You know, I love, don't get me wrong, I love Nick Saban. I think he's the greatest of all time, but it never fails for the media at these Media Days to ask Lane about Nick Saban. So I'll definitely be waiting for that.
Might be by Nick Saban because he's going to be there.
And so that actually be fun. I think, you know, Nick will bring a little bit of energy out of Lane that we may not usually get. But, you know, I'm kind of excited to hear him talk about just maybe what are the goals are for this upcoming year. I know we have a lot of expectations, and I know a lot of the media is, you know, obviously a 12 playoff format now, and the expectation is for us to get there. But, you know, I've been asking myself this a lot over the last few weeks: is getting to the playoffs enough for us? Just the return of the talent, the coaching staff, the transfer. Is it enough? And you know, I've been going back and forth.
I think so. If we're going to be realistic, getting to the playoffs should be enough. Now, talent-wise, if you look at the roster, they should probably host a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
But just getting to the playoffs, that should be the line of what is a good season.
Yeah, and I think we will. And I say that because over the last 2 or 3 years, if we had this 12 playoff format, we would have already made the playoffs. And so I think that's definitely is the goal and will be the goal. Like you said, host a playoff game. I think that brings an essence to Oxford that builds consistency and builds where we actually are at now instead of where we're going. And I would love for us to at least win a game in the playoffs. And so that's kind of my expectation. And I also one thing I think to kind of expect, the media staff to kind of mesh and see who lane is conversating between the coaches. I know apparently there's a big group coaching staff, conversation with the coaches. I don't know how much they talk in it or not, but I'd love to kind of hear just what's going on in that world of that conversation. I think that's going to be a fun time. But no, I think it's going to be a good time to kind of just get Lane's kind of more perspective throughout this offseason on where the team is at and how we've built and what kind of pieces are adding up in terms of who's going to play where and how are things going to mesh with different players now.
It's going to be absolutely hilarious, right, when it's Ole Miss versus Missouri in the SEC championship game, right?
You know what's funny about that? I have a buddy that goes to Mizzou, and I told him about maybe 2 weeks ago, I'm like, who's going to be this championship game this year? I like Mizzou and Ole Miss, and I said it's bound to happen. Just the consistency we've shown and the way Drink has built his program there, and they have a lot of returning talent too. Why can't it happen? I think we're two of the most up and coming programs in the conference right now. We both had New York 6 wins last year. Why can't it happen? And so I'm excited. I think both of our fan bases got a little indulged at the end of the season last year in terms of seeing who was going to slide into where we were going to do in the postseason. But I love it. I think Mizzou's kind of like become our unformed rival now, which I find funny, but it's something I'm actually looking forward to. I actually was a little disappointed to see us not playing them this year. I think that just would have made it for a great media joke, but it's going to be fun regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Besides, today was the Ole Miss Takeover Day on the SEC Network, and I watched the replay of the Peach Bowl, the Ole Miss Penn State game, and a couple of takeaways in that game. First of all, Jackson Dart's just amazingly a tough quarterback. My goodness, that guy. He's sitting there walking on like a leg and a half and doing that and still threw for nearly 400 yards against the number one defense in the entire country. And also, Trey Harris is uncoverable one-on-one. He's not coverable one-on-one.
That's 100% true, man. I rewatched too, and I had such a great time in the Peach Bowl, but I think something that we didn't get to consistently see from game one to our final game last year was a healthy Caden pre-scoring. And I think for me, that's one of the most exciting things about our offense this year. Caden provides just so much run blocking, pass blocking, obviously. Kind of showed his true essence in that Peach Bowl against Penn State and how great he really can be in terms of being in the end zone, being in the middle of the field, getting upfield, blocking upfield. I'm excited to see Caden this year. I think he's going to take a new leap within our offense, and so I'm excited to see how he kind of progresses in his final year.
Yeah, and actually seeing TJ Dudley in that game, since he didn't play during the course of the year, and you see him in that one, I'm excited to see what he could be this year. I think he might be the person actually that is backing up Princely and Monmielen.
TJ's really, really versatile. Like, he does a lot, and you really don't notice it because I wouldn't say he's not a stat pad guy if you're just looking at stats. But if you watch the game and like you said, that Peach Bowl, he came in and did a lot of different things, played in a lot of different areas, was across the field in a lot of different ways. And it kind of opened up things for other guys to kind of be more proficient in where they were at on the field. And I saw just a little bit of trust from Pete, just kind of putting him in there at different time sets in the game against Penn State and allowing him to kind of be free and kind of direct traffic a little bit as well. So that's a really good point. I think Pete showed a lot of trust, and he obviously earned that, especially not playing throughout the whole year in terms of practice and watching film and in the practice room. And so I'm excited to see what, that we'll take away from that and, a full offseason of healthy TJ Dudley and going into the first game, what his role will look like on the defense.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Daylan Flowers, thank you so much for joining us today. What do you got going on this week, bud?
Man, I'm doing a lot of recording. I'm going to Vegas next week to see NBA Summer League, so I won't be around next week. So I'm just trying to do a lot of recording, get that out the way. I just recorded with David Eckert earlier and literally had a great conversation with him, man, just speaking with him and chatting with him and kind of seeing what his expectations for the program are this year. So I've just been doing a lot of pre-recording and got a summer class going. So that's what I'll be doing. But yeah, man, just working and doing some schoolwork, man.
That's absolutely awesome. We will talk to you, it sounds like, in 2 weeks.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So take care, bud, and we'll talk to you then, all right?
Appreciate it, man. Howdy toddy, y'all. Keep enjoying
Howdy toddy.